On today's episode, we're diving into one of the most talked about royal revelations. In recent years, the claim that Kate Middleton was reportedly less concerned than Prince William when Prince Harry stepped back from royal life. And let's just say, the more you unpack it, the more it reveals about who was truly thinking about the future and who was stuck clinging to the past. According to an excerpt from William and Catherine, The Monarchy's New Era, The Inside Story by Russell Myers, the dynamics behind Prince Harry's departure were more layered than palace insiders originally let on. Myers, who serves as royal editor at the Daily Mirror, wrote that Catherine had less interest than her husband in trying to persuade Harry to stay in his current role. That single sentence speaks volumes. For years, the public narrative painted Prince Harry as impulsive, emotional, even reckless. But when you zoom out, what you see is a man who had been wrestling with the limitations of a rigid hierarchy since birth. Harry wasn't just any royal, he was the so-called spare. And in the British monarchy, that title comes with expectations, but very little autonomy. According to Myers's book, Catherine believed the fundamental differences as the heir and the spare had created the inevitability of Harry wanting more from his role than being a bit part player. Because what that statement actually acknowledges is that Harry's dissatisfaction wasn't sudden. It wasn't Meghan's doing, it wasn't California, it was structural, it was systemic, it was baked into the institution itself. While Prince William was reportedly intensely saddened by his brother's decision, Catherine appears to have accepted that this outcome was inevitable. But accepting inevitability isn't the same as fighting for someone. It's not the same as advocating for change. It's not the same as saying, maybe the system needs to evolve. Instead, what it suggests is that Catherine was comfortable with the structure exactly as it was heir at the top, spare in support. No room for reinvention. No room for individuality. Just tradition. Harry has always been a modernizer at heart. From founding the Invictus Games to openly discussing mental health long before it was fashionable in royal circles, he consistently pushed boundaries. And when he married Meghan Markle, that forward-thinking mindset only intensified. Meghan brought global perspective, Hollywood-level communications savvy, and a deep understanding of humanitarian storytelling. Together they were dynamic, and perhaps that dynamism was uncomfortable for those who preferred predictability. It's a system designed to create imbalance. William was always destined to be king. Harry was always destined to support him. But what happens when the spare doesn't want to be a background character? What happens when he wants to build something equally impactful but different? According to Myers, William felt that there would be no turning back. The drifting apart had been happening for years. But why were they drifting? Was it truly Harry pulling away, or was it the institution tightening its grip around the heir, isolating him in a role that demanded distance? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Proximity to the throne often means proximity to protocol. William's path has always been scripted. His public persona is measured, careful, institutional. Harry's, by contrast, has always been personal, emotional, human. When Harry and Meghan announced in 2020 that they would step back as senior working royals and relocate to California, the backlash was swift. But look at where they are now. Living in Montecito, California, raising Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet with intentional privacy, they have built a life on their own terms. They've launched media projects, philanthropic initiatives, and global partnerships without relying on palace approval. Contrast that with the rigid constraints of palace life. Myers' description of William being deeply saddened is understandable on a human level. Losing closeness with a sibling hurts, but sadness doesn't equal solution. And from what's described, there doesn't appear to have been a serious attempt to address the root causes of Harry's frustration, only attempts to preserve the status quo. Catherine's stance, believing the differences made the split inevitable, reads almost detached. It suggests that instead of asking, "How can we make this work for everyone?" the approach was more, "Well, this was bound to happen." Because Harry wasn't asking to be king. He was asking for relevance, for purpose beyond ribbon-cutting, for the freedom to pursue projects without palace micromanagement, for protection from relentless media hostility, something Meghan especially endured at levels that were frankly unacceptable. Let's not forget the media climate during Meghan's early years in the UK. Headlines dissected her family, her background, even her baby bump. And the response from senior royals? Largely silence. For a couple who had just married into what was supposed to be a supportive institution, that silence was deafening. Harry has spoken openly about wanting to avoid repeating the trauma of losing his mother, Princess Diana, to media pressure and institutional rigidity. That context matters. His decisions weren't rash, they were protective. And if Catherine truly believed the split was inevitable, that suggests she recognized the systemic tension. But recognizing tension without advocating reform is a choice. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan chose reinvention. Since moving to the United States, they've carved out a platform that blends advocacy with storytelling. Whether it's mental health initiatives, veterans support, or women's empowerment, their projects consistently reflect personal passion rather than inherited obligation. And perhaps that's the real shift. William represents continuity. Harry represents change. Continuity can feel safe. Change can feel threatening. But history shows that institutions survive when they adapt. The monarchy has endured centuries because of gradual evolution. Yet, when presented with an opportunity to integrate modern perspectives, a biracial American duchess with global media experience, a prince willing to speak candidly about mental health, the system appeared resistant. Instead of harnessing that energy, it allowed division to deepen. Myers's reflection that fond childhood memories were tarnished by the division at the heart of the family is poignant. No one denies that the brothers once shared a deep bond. They supported each other through unimaginable grief. They navigated adolescence under a global spotlight. William's destiny is singular, to reign. Harry's destiny was less defined, which ironically gave him more freedom to redefine it himself. And redefine it he has. Today, the Sussex brand stands independently. Their philanthropic work operates globally. Their children are growing up outside the relentless British tabloid ecosystem. And while critics continue to question their choices, their impact remains undeniable. The irony? By stepping away, Harry may have secured a legacy far more personal and transformative than remaining would have allowed. Meanwhile, William and Catherine continue to embody the traditional model. That works for the institution, but it doesn't necessarily work for every individual within it. And perhaps that's the heart of this entire story. Not villain versus hero, not loyalty versus betrayal, but structure versus self-determination. Harry chose self-determination. Meghan supported that choice, and Catherine, by believing it was inevitable, may have quietly acknowledged that the system wasn't built to accommodate two equally ambitious brothers. So when we look back at 2020, it's less about abandonment and more about evolution. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex didn't reject duty, they redefined it. They didn't abandon service, they globalized it. They didn't turn their backs on family, they prioritized their own. And in doing so, they sparked a conversation that extends far beyond palace walls about hierarchy, mental health, media ethics, and the courage it takes to walk away from something powerful in order to build something meaningful. That's not a scandal. That's a turning point. And whether the monarchy chooses to learn from it or resist it will shape its future for decades to come. But one thing is clear. Prince Harry stepping back wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of it.